Hey everyone, and welcome to Epicedium's first installment of Popcorn and the Paranormal, where as a team we sat down and watched one of our favorite movies, Poltergeist, and now we're going to talk about it and see what you think about it as well. So please stay tuned, listen to some of our Q&As, and feel free to comment, let us know what you think, and if you want to see more of these in the future. If you have movie recommendations, even better.
For its time, great special effects, but if I'm not mistaken, from what I understand about the definition of a poltergeist, it's not a poltergeist.
No, it's not.
It's not even close to a poltergeist. So I wanted to get your guys' opinions on that because I still don't understand why they call it that. I mean, my understanding is a poltergeist attaches itself to, or it's an entity that's created out of, like, say, for example, a preteen girl who's getting ready to go through puberty and she has all this angst and energy and she can manifest this thing that kind of takes on a life of its own. I've talked to Kara and compared a poltergeist to a tulpa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what I understand, and that's not even remotely what's going on in the movie. So what do you guys think? I mean, it's a haunting, right?
Yeah. Well, I think
It's
back
more than
then
haunted.
there was that preconceived notion whenever objects moved, they were calling that a poltergeist, even though that's completely inaccurate.
Right.
So I think if the movie started with the chair moving in the kitchen, they were like, it's a poltergeist.
Because a haunting, I mean, ghosts can affect their environment as well. So yeah, I thought that was interesting that they called it poltergeist. But again, for the time and the fact that they actually had investigators come in, I thought was pretty innovative because to that point, no one even talked about paranormal investigations. I mean, you had Hans Holzer, who nobody even heard of, and he was about the only guy out there that was doing investigations. So the fact that they were innovative enough, to have Dr. Lesh, and the fact that she was a psychologist by day, but then a parapsychologist by night, and that was a really cool thing. And they introduced psychic, which is really not that far from what investigators do today. They have the camera equipment. They didn't have all the bells and whistles that we have, but for the time,
Right.
pretty impressive, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, and again, you said it's not a poltergeist, it's a haunting. You can even make the argument it's even more than a haunting, right? It's more of a, I don't want to say possession, but there's definitely an influence there.
Oh, yeah.
Infestation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
a good
sure.
word for it. Infestation.
Yeah, because it was definitely more than a haunting, because there was more than just spirits there. Like, there was something beyond that was affecting them and causing them to not be able to move on from that location. So it's definitely a complicated case.
Definitely.
You could say that. And I think, isn't poltergeist German for like noisy ghost?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's beyond that with this movie. It's like we're way past just ghosts here. We're just talking about energy, pure energy, and
Right. And you're also dabbling into the theories that hauntings can actually be different planes and other timelines running concurrently with each other and being able to transfer between each plane, and that apportation is passing through that plane, from one time period to another time period.
Right.
So that brings me to my next question, which is, so when Carol Ann was in the closet in the TV, she was communicating through the TV, which I thought was interesting too, because it kind of reminded me of their version of an SB7.
yeah,
True.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an absence of a signal. I mean, that's So I mean, where was she? I mean, Tangina talked about her being in between worlds. Was she in another dimension? Was she in the in between our world and heaven?
Right.
I mean, where?
Well, that's difficult because she wasn't just there psychically; she was there physically as well,
right?
Which would make me feel it was a different plane of existence.
Right.
Because if she was between heaven and hell, that would just be more of a soul level thing, spiritual thing, as opposed to a full physical change of existence.
Right.
And the fact that in the movie they had those wormholes that connected, right? Where the tennis balls went through and the rope went through and everything. And clearly in between those 2 points, there was a different world with different physical aspects because everything came out covered in the goo.
In the cube.
In the goo.
Which reminds me of like jelly.
Right.
It's like straight up grape
Was
jelly.
that supposed to be, and that's another good point, was that supposed to be ectoplasm?
Yeah.
What
What
exactly
was the jelly?
what,
I
what,
guess.
yeah.
Say.
I don't
I've
know.
always wondered what that was. What
Ghost
was
guts.
Ghost guts. I mean, it's like becomes like ectoplasm.
Right.
You know, because even back when spiritualism was a thing, a lot of the mediums, first thing they would fake is this ectoplasm. Ectoplasm was real big back
Yeah.
when spiritualism just started out. That was
Yeah.
a word they liked to throw around.
Mhm.
And I found it interesting that they kind of revamped that in this movie
Yeah.
and used the jelly as what I would assume was like ectoplasm.
Mhm.
Or was it something almost used as a lubricant between dimensions?
Right.
Maybe that wasn't even there on the other side. You know what I mean? But it was just there when they
True.
came through. Maybe. Could be.
Or if you're talking about going through different dimensions and say they're going into a fourth dimension and how things look differently in the fourth dimension, then maybe that's because you're going to change physical form as you go through dimensions. So maybe that's the shedding of the physical manifestation of what you would look like in fourth dimension coming back to third dimension.
Maybe.
Mind blown.
Something just happened there. But then was that
I don't know.
the point of the water when they came out the other side and they're like, get them in the water? Was that special water? Did I miss that part?
It was soapy though. It was.
They were like,
So
was it
weird.
to clean them off or was it?
It could have been more like a
But-
cleansing type of thing
Yeah.
for them.
To me, the way when Diane and Carol Ann come back and they're covered in this goo and they're not breathing, the first thing I thought was being reborn,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
then getting them in the water to get all the
Yeah. So what is that? Like afterbirth? Or
Yeah.
what would
whatever
that be?
is.
Yeah.
Kanjini even referred to what in my mind was thinking as a portal. She referred to it as the membrane, which
There
I
you
thought
go.
was interesting.
That is interesting.
Of the portal? So it was like a lubricant to help them come through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are going back to the birth
So,
metaphor.
yeah. So that's it is. It's like a metaphor for being reborn. That
Yeah.
again.
Wow.
Yeah, and so then you can you can make the argument that they were or Carol Ann was trapped in the place where souls go before they're born
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Or after.
or after.
Or after they die. Right?
Yeah.
True.
The
Fascinating.
holding pattern.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The holding
A
pattern.
holding bed. That's,
Yeah, it's like a holding pattern.
Like purgatory?
Sort of. That's what you would. Yeah.
Who knew it was so gooey over there?
Yeah.
Hey.
So my biggest thing of the entire movie was the house being built on burial ground, and finding out that they only moved the stones and didn't move the actual bodies themselves. And I always sat back and wondered, like, I wonder how much like that happens.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Like
Especially back in the
literally.
day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like that's why Garden State Parkway, when you're driving either north or south and you go through the cemetery that's like North Irvington,
Yep.
there are, reports of apparitions because the people
Oh,
that
yeah.
are under that roadway didn't get moved. They just got
Mhm.
paved over.
Didn't they also kind of do that in Gettysburg? Because they started with that one cemetery of like unknown soldiers and they
Yes.
moved them over to like a newer one or
Yeah.
give
Mhm.
them. Yeah, so I'm sure it happened all the time, especially back in the day, you know, because who would know?
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this case,
They
it
knew.
was like the 70s, so they definitely knew what
They
they were
knew.
doing.
Which brings up an interesting point. Wouldn't those, you hear the term 6 feet under, wouldn't they have found those bodies when they were digging that pool? I mean, I know they eventually came up out of the ground, but
Yeah,
I would
Bigger than 6
think,
feet.
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I would think that they would have run into that.
Yeah.
And I would think that would have been a concern to the guy who didn't move the bodies, like maybe saying, no pools allowed.
Yeah.
No
Well,
digging
no
more than
in-ground-
3 feet.
no
no
in-ground pool.
in-ground pools.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
For sure. I would like to discuss the part of the movie that had the psychic or medium or however they classified her in the movie. So
Parapsychologist, whatever.
parapsychologist, yeah. So I mean, she was clearly able to connect with the other side, whether it be the deceased or other dimension or whatever theory we're going with. But I found that movie to be a great example about how she was very good and professional at her job, and she could clearly tune in. But still, at the end of the day, you can't take everything a medium or clairvoyant says 100%. Because what did she say when she left the house? This house is clean.
And it wasn't.
Right? And it wasn't. And that was nothing against her, right?
Right.
Because she did a great job, got their daughter back, and did help Spirit move on. But at the end of the day, the problem wasn't 100% solved.
Right.
So, like, what are the thoughts on that? Because so many teams these days, and clients too, because they don't know any better, rely so heavily on the clairvoyant and the mediums.
She may have thought by what transpired, Carol Ann comes back, Diane comes back, everything's quiet. So she may have honestly thought that the house was cleaned.
Yeah.
And like not known, even though,
For sure.
yeah.
And that's my point. So, people who use the talents of clairvoyants, mediums, psychics, however you want to classify them, not a bad thing, but you can't rely on them 100%, right?
You can not to, I have never felt that you can get a spirit to go to the other side.
Okay.
I don't, it's just, because how do you know they actually did? Because, I mean,
Right.
like, there's really no way of knowing that they did or not.
Right.
So I just,
Or what the other side even is.
exactly.
Right.
Like, we don't know. Like,
Right, and
how can
where
we
did-
morally
where-
send them
right.
someplace when we don't even know
Where
where
we're sending them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
I don't-
sketchy gray area when
It is.
when you start talking about
Yeah.
crossing people over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is not something that we should decide as
No.
Yeah, don't even know where we're even crossing them.
Right.
exactly.
When you're talking with a person who's living and you're done with a conversation, you don't tell them where to go after you're done.
Right.
You can go home now, like I'm done.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
do that, So
Sure.
it should be the same. But I think too in the movie when Tangina came out, she was like, they're attracted to her life source or whatever, but then there is an evil spirit back there or whatever, and we all know that the evil spirit, like evil or spirits with malintent, can lie dormant and kind of fade into the background on purpose. So it could come later, and it takes multiple times to even get it to a place where it is dormant again.
For sure.
Because
Either dormant or change to appear to be.
Yeah. So,
That
I'm
movie
not going
tried-
anywhere.
It did kind of throw everything at the wall to see what stuck. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a whole mixed bag of things going on there because you did have, the people who were supposedly not at rest because their bodies weren't moved, and then you had the evil thing that was there with them that was evidently trying to keep them from crossing over. We never figure out what its intentions were, why it didn't want them to cross over. So, I mean, that was interesting. So then, my impression was Tangina did get at least some of them to cross over, but perhaps some of them stayed with the, as she called it, the beast, stayed with it because they felt that they had been wrong, that they still had business to do here.
As you can see with what happened at the end of the movie, where
Right.
it pretty much started destroying
Oh.
the entire.
Housing development.
Yeah, where
was
it pretty much
the
started destroying the entire thing, the housing, everything like that. So it kind of seemed like more like that they was trying to get like revenge for what it did.
Yeah.
yeah. It was an interesting thing because it's almost like it got woken up by those bodies from the pool.
right.
So maybe she did cleanse the house of the spirits that were in the house at that time, and then like more could have moved in. And it is odd that none of that beast activity even started until he moved the headstones.
Right.
Right.
So maybe it was a manifestation of the anger of the spirits that were there that were like covered over. Who even knows?
Mhm.
But so as a team, if we were in a scenario like that and we had somebody come in, cross people over, got the kid back, this house is now clean. Like, what do you feel our next step should have been after that?
Oh, that's a good
I
question.
don't think we, as a team with the way we do things, would have stayed with it that long. You know what I mean? Like it was because it was not a Green Casper thing.
Right.
We would have turned it over.
Right. We would have handed it off to a team that handles
that,
negative.
yeah.
For that movie.
Which brings me to my question. What do you guys think about the curse of the movie and everybody in it that passed away?
Oh yeah. Well, not
Oh
yeah.
Well, no, not the dad.
not coach.
Coach went on
Yeah,
to
don't be serious.
She's all good.
Well, they first said like they tried to blame it first of all on the skeletons in the swimming pool being actual.
As I was
human
gonna say,
remains.
yeah, suppose it was real remains that was
Right.
used.
They were because prop houses used human remains that they had acquired because a prop house is basically just like a big garage sale. They just acquire crap, and so they had a lot of articulated skeletons from medical schools and stuff that had closed down, and they're much cheaper to acquire than to have a special effects whole articulated skeleton done. So. It was not unusual at that time for skeletons to be actual human remains.
Right.
Movie after movie had them, so that didn't pan out. But I mean, what are the statistically? I would have to look at it statistically. So the girl who stood in the street and screamed, I can't think of her name.
The older sister,
Yeah,
Carol Ann.
right. So, but again, so Carol Ann died of some freak.
Stomach issue?
Yeah, some disease that was rare and they didn't catch it. But
If you look at even if you look at like other things that have curses around them, whether it be King Tut, whether it be the Jewel, whether it be or whatever,
Yeah.
not everybody died the same way. They just died.
Right.
So the common thread linking them all together is the death. So is
death in the movie.
what, I'm sorry.
The death and the movie.
The death in the
Right.
movie, right? So, that being said, how statistically, how relevant is it that two people pass away that are on the same movie that just happen to be
Right.
about something that deals with negative entities and paranormal?
Yeah.
right, good thing you had Joe Beth Williams, Craig T. Nelson, fine. The woman who played Tangina lived many years after that.
All right, everyone. So I'm Ron from Epicedium Paranormal. So the big moment we've all been waiting for. We've gotten done watching our first movie for our new series on YouTube, Poltergeist. Now we're going to ask, and we want to go around the entire table, and we want to know how many ghosts we will give this for a review.
What's the scale?
1 out of 5.
5 being
The best.
The best.
We'll go with Gail first.
Oh, hello. I would say 3 out of 5 ghosts.
Okay.
I have to concur. 3 out of 5.
I give it 4 out of 5.
Don't make me the bad guy.
It's got to be 1.
I give it 1.5.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm going to go 3.5.
I'll say 2.
All right.
2 out of 5.
Thank you.
So on average, we're around the middle of the ground. We're around 3 out of 5 on average. I think it was a good laugh,
Yes.
some good conversation, but overall there have definitely been much improved paranormal movies.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
But for the time period
Yes,
that it was,
yeah.
I think it was pretty innovative.
Yes.
I mean, and my 4 is based on the fact that that movie is how I became interested in what we all do. My
Right.
grandmother, who was way before her time and who loved everything scary, Edgar Allan Poe was her favorite. And
Me too.
when that movie came out, my mother said, Helen, do not take her to go see that movie under any circumstances. And she said, all right. As soon as my mom was gone, she loaded up her purse with candy and off to the movies we went. And, you know, and she laughed through the whole thing. I, on the other hand, was absolutely terrified. But, you know, she told me after the movie, you know, Gail, don't be afraid of things that you don't understand. Be curious. And that's
Cautiously curious.
Cautiously curious. And try to understand them. Try to figure out, you know, what, you know, we always fear what we don't understand.
Yep.
So that left me with that need to understand more about, you know, what is paranormal. So that's why 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sentimental reasons.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Totally.
Heck yeah.
2 for you and 2 for Grandma.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yay.
Woo.
Discussion.
Success.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Please remember to subscribe, comment, like, click the bell for notifications, and all that other fun stuff. And be sure to check out our other YouTube videos where we interview people, talk about our favorite topics, and we hope to see you soon. Enjoy your popcorn and the paranormal. Bye, guys.
Bye.